You may be double muted.
Good morning, everybody. Apologies for that. Was double muted. But yeah, as Roosevelt said, I'm Joshua Maiden. I'm a solutions engineer here at RMG, and we're going to take you through Korbyt and getting you logged in, created, how to create content, really trained on the system, and how it works, and how to get content set up for everything that you would need to create. And
Hey, Josh, I think I may have accidentally muted you. Sorry.
Yep, we'll get one more person to join, hopefully, or it looks like we're having a few more people join, so we will get started right away. And let me make sure I can get logged into your tenant correctly. Okay, excellent. Let me start sharing my screen. And again, just to give you an overview of Korbyt, Korbyt is your new signage platform. It's much more than a signage platform, but right now you're using it in strictly mainly the signage capacity. And what it is it's an online software system that works to author content, ingest data, do all kinds of different functionality, and then push that content out to endpoints, which are screens. The way you'll access Korbyt is you'll go to www.korbyt.com. And so if I open up another window, korbyt.com, and you'll see this is the website, the main website that you actually access. And you will, again, you want to access this in a Chrome browser. Chrome is our preferred browser. You'll have all the functionality of Korbyt. Everything will work correctly. So make sure it is, Google Chrome. But you'll see in the top right, there's an enter button. You'll just hit the enter, and it'll take you to a login screen, which will look like this. All right, so this is our main login screen. You will have your specific username and password that either be emailed to you as an activation link, or you'll be set up and somebody from the system from Radford Universities, maybe Ashley or somebody like that, will send you an email link with your username and password to go ahead and log into the system. But once you get to this page, you'll enter that specific username and password, and it'll log you into your particular Korbyt tenant. That means it's specifically set up for Radford University. Nobody can have access to this unless you grant them access by making them users, right? So again, very secure. You'll have your login page. Again, you can click remember me if you'd like to make it easy to keep logging in, but you'll just log in, and you should see a end user license agreement, right? Now you'll want to read through this. I have read through this many times, so I'm going to just go ahead and go all the way down to the bottom and agree. And that'll take you to the main Korbyt dashboard. So the main Korbyt dashboard serves as a repository of information for you. Based on, it gives you an overall snapshot of your tenant and the health of your tenant. It'll tell you the total players, active players. It's highly customizable. You'll see that all these items, once they start populating with more content, more players, your map will fill out with players on locations. You'll have player statuses, inactive versus statuses, and you'll have screenshots of all the players. You can see your, again, top playlist, and all this is customizable. So you can come in here and really choose what you want your dashboard to display for you if you hit the pencil button. And a few things about Korbyt overall: whenever you see a pencil, it usually means you can edit something. Whenever you see a gear wheel, that means there's usually something that can be exposed. to allow additional menus, things like that. And this will make sense as we get more and more into Korbyt. But again, you can really easily turn on and turn off what's displaying on your dashboard. All right, we can turn off all these items very quickly and hit the check mark. And as you see, it updates, and now we just have our total players as a quick look, right? We can always come back here and then hide all these. And you can do that with any of these toggle switches on the top. You can turn them on or off as needed. All right. So another great feature about the dashboard is you'll have the top part here that has banners from us that give you more information, whether it's a free layouts, free content that you can get from us as we design it and build it in our system. You can also, see what's happening with the latest release. The great thing about Korbyt is it is a SaaS-based platform, which means that you'll never have to worry about being on an old, outdated software system. Because it's cloud-based, because it's web-based, we can push the update and it'll constantly remain updated, and you'll always have the latest and greatest features. Again, we offer free learning, free website, free webinar training, right, for all of our users and potential users. So another great reason to check this banner is that you can sign up for free webinars, things of that nature, to learn more about Korbyt, learn more about the features that have come out in the latest release. We have ongoing series of these that give you tips on building content, and again, just the latest and greatest of what Korbyt has to offer. And then one more main item on the web page is Insights. You can go to Insights, and that'll take you directly to your report section. The report section, again, gives you a lot of great information and ways to pull reports on how your system is being used, right? Your core, you can add, see how many players have been added recently, what their status is, and you can export a lot of these to Excel documents. So your core is going to give you main Korbyt reporting, right? So you can see urgent alerts, how many have been used, how many have gone to signage, etc. Or you can see playlist feedback. Again, a lot of different items that can be affected by your Korbyt core system, right? This is the media content that's been added to your media library. And again, we'll get into all these sections in just a minute on how Korbyt, on all these different reports and how they correlate to the actual sections. But then you'll see there's activity reports. Korbyt Go is the actual omni-channel distribution platform inside of Korbyt. It also serves as a desktop and mobile app as well, but it can really push content to multiple different types of endpoints. And again, that's something that's a future use for you guys maybe. Right now, you're mainly using in capacity for digital signage. Activity reports, again, you can see who's active, audit trails. You can see who's changing things and reports. Or right, once you begin to have a lot of changes, these will automatically populate. And then interactivity logging, again, is just exactly what it says. Korbyt does offer interactivity the same way the ES did, but we can do a lot more with it since it is a web-based program. So that's your main dashboard in Korbyt, right? You can always refer back to it by clicking on the dashboard. So some few overall features too. As you first log in, you can expand or collapse this menu to give you more real estate on the main page. As you get more proficient, you'll know exactly what these icons mean, right? Or you can expand all of them down. So the items that have additional submenus can be exposed all together, or they can be collapsed together, right? Or you can individually come in and expose one of them. So just a quick, user functionality that you can, tailor suit to your needs, how you like to display your screen. A few more items is you'll have up here is your user profile. You can see your own profile and all your information you're set up to view, right? I'd set myself up as a person on your tenant, just like anybody else, right? And I'd have a specific login, specific password. You can change the password here for users automatically, or your own, right, directly in here. But you can also, from this profile menu, you can manage all the users, right? So I have all my users here that have been added to the system. You can see people have started to add photos of themselves and things of that nature. And we can go in and see the breadth of our users, all of them, the totality of it. And we can also edit individual users. Again, pencil mark or pencil icon is going to mean edit. So again, we can come in and if we need to change Loretta's password for any reason, we can do so. If we need to change her role type, we can do so. The role types, a little bit about that. As you see, these are all offered in Korbyt. And basically, they offer the ability to restrict certain access to Korbyt. Your tenant admin is going to have unlimited access to everything about your Korbyt tenant, everything that's about your solution and implementation. They're going to be the ones that are going to have that access. And they're going to be the ones that are also going to be in charge of things like the media player devices, making sure the content is flowing correctly using playlists and things like that. Whereas an admin would have a little bit less responsibility, right? They would not have necessarily access to all the different advanced analytics parts that the tenant admin can access, as well as some of the other features that are listed here, like boards and templates, which again is something that's not used very often at all. Our digital signage approver, again, says exactly what that is. It's a digital signage approver. They approve content only. The content author is just what it says. They can author content only. The Launchpad digital signage is a specific section of Korbyt that we can get into in a minute too, and you'll see it's right here, Launchpad. And this is this is a separate section of Korbyt, an easy way to author content and push it out, but they'll only have access to that. And then read only, again, simply as it suggests, is going to be the person that just wants to log in and make sure that see that there's stuff happening. They really can't change anything. They just want to oversee, make sure that the system's being used, things like that. So nothing really to approve, no access to a lot of the site, just able to go and look and make sure things are running smoothly. And it's mainly for like potentially C-level employees, your CEOs, things like that, that want to look and make sure that their investment's being used, but at the same time don't need to change anything, right? So again, you would just simply hit save, and on any changes you make in that menu, and they will apply. Again, you can easily, yes.
Hi, this is Ashley. I was for most of the people, they're just putting in content on that main place in the layout, the big rectangle. Would you recommend that most of them be a content administrator?
I would say that they would need to be content authors, because a content author can actually, if they're dragging and dropping in the folder, the content author really applies to content that's authored in the system, right? If it's an image that's being dragged into a folder, they're not authoring anything in the system that would need to go through an approval process through the system.
Okay, so what if you're those are actually the two situations that we have, is that they're creating in Korbyt, or that they would be creating something in, I don't know, Photoshop or something like that and importing it in.
Right.
So would content author work for everyone, or what would you recommend?
So I would recommend the people that need to, so content author cannot publish content, and this may be familiar to you as an ES user, but there's two forms of, once we build what are called layouts now, it's the same thing as messages or in the old system, but it works on two principles, right? You save where your content is at, and it'll save your progress, but it won't push it to screen. You actually need to publish that content to push to screen, and content authors can't publish content. in the system. So the people that are adding for the folder drop, right, that are just creating PowerPoint slides and exporting them and adding them to a folder situation, content author works just fine because that process does not follow the workflow inside of Korbyt, right? It's just they're dragging a folder and it's going to screen.
And they will actually need to publish as well. So maybe what would you recommend if they need to?
Yeah, I would just recommend admin, regular admin. So if somebody like does, then we can change it. And
yes, yeah, I put most people in as content author because that's just what I guessed would be right. But I can go back and change that. So what was the designation then?
I would give them administrator. Yeah, so that gives them the right to publish as well, without a system of checks and balances. While at the same time, the system is set up to where if they publish and you have you can select who gets to approve the content, right? So you can have either separate content approvers, or it could be somebody like you or another tenant admin, or you could just give them the outright control by giving them the admin role.
Yeah, I don't think we need to add an approval layer.
Okay, excellent. Yeah, and it's just there in case you do. Again, we're with Korbyt, we try to, plan for every eventuality. So eventually in the future, you may want to implement some kind of role and responsibility approval section inside of Korbyt. So
they will be, so just to be clear to everyone. So this is when you're an administrator, which it sounds like that's what everyone needs to be. Before the other system we saw, and Simon, we had the honor system is you don't mess with anybody else's stuff, but it looks like we are going to have, everyone will have access to everyone else's layouts and.
No, not necessarily.
Okay.
We can lock that down, and I'll show you how we do that right now. So we'll go ahead and just, for now, we'll do Christine Bowman as a admin, right? Is that
good? Yes. Good. Yes.
Okay, so we'll save that. And again, that's how you do it. And then again, we see her, she's updated her role there. When she logs in again, if she logs out, logs back in, she'll now have the admin access role, right? Okay. But to manage where specific access is given, you'll want to set up user groups.
Okay.
And user groups are groupings of different individuals. You can come in here and select manually your groups, right? Mm-hmm. We can come in and select two of those. We can give it a group name. We can say this is just for testing or just for training, Department 1, right?
Right.
And we can say so we just create that, and there's our group of employees. We can always go back and edit it, add employees, change employee or users, right? We can remove them here. We can add additional ones here, right? And let's see, she starts to populate over here, right? And simply just save. And then what you can do with these user groups is now you can go into either your media library, right? And if we look at the root folder here, you can begin to lock down folder access by user groups.
Okay.
So you can, again, people that are dragging and dropping to folders, if you want the RUC or the RUC campus, right, to be only there, people can access it, then that's what you would set up. You set up a user group for RUC, and you'd come in here, and on this main folder where we find RUC, we would come back down here and uncheck global access and then select the group that we want.
Okay.
All right, so we can go Department 1. Tenant admins, again, have access to everything. So you don't want to have these groups that you're restricting access. They may have one tenant admin in there that can access everything, but a lot of the people, if they're admins, they won't be able to access the different groups. So that's where that setting of role that you want to put.
So
just admin creative signing.
So if you don't check admin, the tenant administrator in the group, you can lock them out. Their tenant credentials don't override. Is that correct?
the tenant admin will always be able to access anything,
whether they're in the user group or not.
whether they're in the user group or not.
Okay.
Yeah, so if we go back to our users, and the great thing about Korbyt too is you can open up multiple tabs. So if we open this up, right, and we go back to our roles.
Right. Yeah, I'll this is some data entry I'll have to work on, but that's good to know. Thank you.
Yeah, so you'll want to, most people will have that, just the admin digital signage, not the tenant admin, right? You're going to be a tenant admin because you're going to be one of the main contacts for Korbyt, making sure the system works correctly and everything.
Right, so I'll just create groups for every feed. And if you, for folks who may be listening, if you're adding different people in your areas, if you could just send me an email with everyone in your area that's going to be working on your feeds, and then I can set up your groups from there later on this week. Thank you.
Yeah, not a problem. And again, that's, we made it as flexible as possible so you can set up those groups however you want. You can change who has access very easily, as you saw. And again, you can give as much information or as little information as you want. And you can even change how they get contacted, right? From text to email to another app that we offer called Compass, which is more of a screen administration tool that you can download from the App Store. But again, it's a pretty simple to set this up. You can have phone numbers on file. You can have their location, and again, the users can log in and update their picture if they like. So very easy to get into users and user groups and manage them and create as many different user groups as you want. We'll leave this one here as a one that you can reverse engineer. You can look at and go back to, and once you're done with it, you can simply delete here. A few more items to call out that are pretty universal in Korbyt. Most pages will have a sort by or a search feature that you can sort by user groups. You can sort by created date, updated date, right? And you can even search by groups and it'll pull up if there's anything. So nothing found for 909, right? So, but if we delete this and search, it brings back all the actual groups. And again, you'll see that there's these two types of views. This is pretty standard throughout Korbyt as well. You can set up your main view as either a card view, which will give you this view, or you can do a list view, which is the one I particularly like because it gives you a lot more information exposed right away at a glance, right? You can see Department 1 group, how many members, who created it, last update, and you can easily edit and trash it here. So again, that functionality is going to be throughout Korbyt, and as we start getting into the meat of Korbyt, you'll see those recur. So any questions so far other than on users, user groups, and kind of the main dashboard before we jump into the main sections here? I'll take that as a no.
Yeah, I think that's the right.
Excellent. So really, how do we use Korbyt, right? So Korbyt, again, is a complete online tool to house all your content that you'll want to push to screen. You'll upload either images to compose content in the system, or like we said, full screen slides that'll just be used to display on the screens. But really, what you're going to mainly focus on are these two tabs, signage and media. These are your two main tabs for this particular instance of Korbyt that are going to do the main work for you. We can start out, we'll skip signage for right now because I want to show you how to get content into Korbyt first, right? So that way we can use it in other methods, right? So the media library, by exposing this is where you're going to have, it's going to be your repository of all your files. Your media library is your main repository. Marketplace is a place to download free content from us. So we populate this constantly with new content that you can use and upload, that you can change. These are layouts that you can download, and they would simply, you download here, and it would go to your layout section in Korbyt, ready to use, and we'll go to there in just a minute. But again, this is just free content from us, and again, that Launchpad is right here as well. Again, easy to download content and change or update as you see fit. Again, this will be populated as Korbyt grows with additional content, more layouts, more playlists, etc. As we go through, and as we grow Korbyt, again, you're gonna start seeing a lot of this populate a lot more. But it's also, you know, very easy to upload content in the Korbyt and in your media library. Your media library is going to be your main repository for all your graphics that you've created outside of Korbyt to bring in. And again, you'll see some similar functionality pieces up here. You'll have, again, your card view or your list view to give you all the details. And that's where we'd lock down our folder permissions here. Every tenant starts blank with just a root folder. And we allow our clients to set up their own folder structure however you'd like. So again, you see this is, there's been plenty of folders set up to house the different pieces of content. As we go into these folders, you can see there's additional content being displayed here, here. All these items are able to use to either display on screen or compose other messages. And again, the folder structure, it's very easy to add folders. You can click the tri-dot menu and click a folder to add, new folder. So now we have a training folder in our main root. If we look back to our root folder, we'll now have that training folder added. And again, to add subfolders, tri-dot menu, subfolders, right? Very easy to go back and again delete it as well, right? But really, all this exists is everything that you've uploaded to Korbyt using the import media tool. So you would simply select a folder that you want to choose to upload your content to, and import media. You can either choose the file here. Again, this pulls up a Windows Explorer. This is my computer. It goes directly to my downloads, but I can change what folder I choose from. But I can simply just grab a image, right? And select it, and it'll begin to upload. And once it's done, once it's finished processing, you'll see it says done and it's processed and it's going to the folder that we selected. A few more call outs on this area. You can always check on your supported media formats. This is a great handy tool to give you an idea of what we accept in Korbyt that can be used in the media library and what can be displayed on screen. So of course, images pretty standard there, audio and video pretty standard, with the exception that we do offer a lot more streaming via .webm and things like that. In Korbyt, it's very easy to link to other video resources as well using layouts. You can link to YouTube and things like that. Again, the expanded documents section, we can now use PowerPoint files, we can use PDF files, use Excel files to display on screen as well. So there's different ways that we can use this, and those use elements in what's called our layout builder, and we'll get into that when we get into the signage section of Korbyt. So again, this will tell you where it's going, your root folder, right? It's going to root, then folder CHBS, then advising, right? So that's where we'll find this image. You can tag this image. Now, tagging is a very powerful underlying tool throughout Korbyt. Tagging allows you to sort content. It allows you to distribute content without ever having to manually schedule anything. So a very powerful tool. If you'd like to use it, it's there. If again, Korbyt is very flexible. If you don't want to use it, it's not necessary to use. But again, it's just a way to kind of automate tagging, to automate the distribution of content and make it so it's like a set and forget type delivery system. So I personally like to use tagging, so I'm gonna go ahead and give it my training tag, and then you can fill it out with copyright information if there's such a thing exists on these photos. But you can also choose files from Google Drive, Dropbox, OneDrive, Box. So if I were to click OneDrive, this would go to, it's asking for permission to my OneDrive, but it would give me, if I accept, it'll allow me to access my personal OneDrive folder for RMG networks, right? And pick images from there or additional content to upload. So very easy. You can also drag and drop here as well. So a lot of people are familiar with this kind of process as well. If we go to downloads and look for an image, right? You can drag and drop here and it'll start uploading.
Joshua?
Yes.
Hi, this is Ashley. A couple just quick questions, I think. How we've been using this before, it was a little bit cumbersome. It sounds like it's going to be a lot easy, and maybe tagging is the way to do this. Or I've heard about a courier option as well. But for instance, Career Services had sent out some slides that they were wanting people to incorporate in their own feeds, and everyone would have to get the graphics, everyone would have to import them, everyone would have to turn it into a message, and everyone would have to schedule it, and everyone would have to publish it. So is there a way that can be simplified, or?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
So the great thing about Korbyt, right, is that we can set that up via playlist and schedule that to all the screens. So whenever that playlist gets uploaded with new content, it shows on that screen, on all the screens. Right?
Is that done with tagging, or?
It can be done with tagging. It can be done. It's mainly done by setting up the playlist correctly. So it could be referencing one folder that you drag and drop to, right? It may be that it's overall entire university communication, right? And it'd be a folder that we set up, and then we just reference that folder, and that gets scheduled to every player or every section.
And just, I'm thinking too that University Relations is probably going to create some PPE messages that we'll want to have on everyone's feed also. And COVID messages and things.
Awesome.
Also, as Vimeo, is that supported? Is that something that the Korbyt supports?
We support YouTube right now, but you can absolutely probably get. There's ways to get just about anything in the Korbyt using an external URL.
Yeah.
You can use a URL that you may be able to get. You can embed content via another element called our HTTP element. And once we get into layout building, we'll talk about all those different elements and how to bring them into the system.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Yep. But yeah, definitely tagging can be a good solution for automating content. And we'll definitely show you how that works. So right now we'll keep that training tag just so you can see, and both these pieces of content will be tag training. And once we get into how to use the tagging, you'll see where this comes into play, right? So I'll just hit done. And now in this folder, right, we should have our Getty images, right? Our 2 Getty images. And we see they're there, but I don't want them in advising. I messed up. I don't want them in advising. So what I can choose to do is delete them here and re-add them to the right folder, or you can simply just drag and drop. Right, really easy. Training, and now if we're to go to our training folder, we'll have our 2 images that are removed from where we're at. Again, you can always choose to do that via in this menu up here, move, copy or delete. You can apply that. You can move. If I select the media again, move, apply, I can select my folder here. All right. Same principle as dragging and dropping, right? Just it does it through the system as opposed to you manually dragging and dropping it. Again, you can sort by your dates, your types. Here it'll tell you, again, part of the media library is that it does have a folder structure, but if you close the folder structure, you'll see the entire media library at once, right? And you can search your entire media library at once. So if I went to Getty here, right, it's not going to pull up anything, but if I search, let's see if I get it to pull. I think it's still pulling this. Yeah. So when you, again, when you search this way, it searches the entire media library. When you search this way, it searches the folder, right? And it'll tell you right here. All right, and again, you can sort by here. Again, this will tell you the folders that you have, the images, videos. Again, there's no separate video section. It's all the media libraries all combined now. So in the ES world, we had a separate videos tab, a separate images tab, or graphics tab. This is all combined, all in one now. So everywhere you have, if we look at here, we can go back to 7 images in the root. There's 17 folders, no video, right? Everything that shows in the root is all 24, 17 folders and 7 images. So a few more things about the media library as we're going through. Again, you can add more folders easily through here. You can add URLs. So the Vimeo, you may want to set it up as a URL here and bring it in directly. All right, you can come in and we can even do Korbyt, right? We can do and now we have Korbyt.com as a URL that we can schedule in a layout in a playlist somewhere where we can access that. All right. Whenever you click on an item, it'll give you, again, just general information about it. This is all the information usually that comes in when we import the file. Again, you can tag it here, but you can also set validity dates. Now, this is helpful if you want content to play for a specific date and expire, right? So we can set it for today's date, and we say we want to expire at the end of the week, right? Now, this doesn't delete the content. This content stays in your media library. It just makes it valid to be displayed on a playlist during this time period. So something to keep in mind is you'll possibly want to curate your media library and make sure that it doesn't get too unwieldy, or you have a good folder structure, right? You want to keep mainly evergreen content, stuff that can be rescheduled mostly without any incident. So anything that's a specific event graphic or a date graphic, you'll probably want to delete as soon as after it runs, because again, all this is taking up cloud space for your tenant. It could potentially affect how fast your media library loads when you're looking for files, things like that. The more files you have, the harder it is to organize. So just something to keep in mind as you're going through Korbyt and your digital signage experience in Korbyt. Internally, our best practice is to go through and from time to time delete old stuff that we don't use on our internal, because we use Korbyt internally for our digital signage. So we go through and curate that and make sure that it's not overloading and taxing the system all that much. But again, you can let it grow as much as you want, but there are certain data caps that we have. So we give clients what, 2 gigabytes of data per month to be able to use. And should that, again, part of your media library is that gigabyte, should it start to begin growing out of control, you could end up breaching that. We haven't seen it yet with even our biggest clients. But it's just something to keep in mind.
And there's no way that we can see that locally? Is that something that you can see on your end? Or can we see how far to the 2 gigs we are?
I'll double check on that. I believe it's a back end feature, but at the same time, I think that they're working to expose that more towards the client, so that way they know automatically. And it might actually be in the reports as well.
Okay.
So, but I'll double check on that and get you an answer for sure.
Thank you.
Yep. But then again, the media library, we're still going through some of the stuff here in the media library. So there's additional items that you can affect on the actual piece of content here in Korbyt as well. You can easily crop an image, right? You can come in and say, I just want this portion of the image. And you can set it up to crop, right? You can zoom in, zoom out. You can rotate the image should you need to, right? Based on how you want it to display. You can automatically get sizing cropped for 4:3, 16:9. So in the case of where you're creating the new content sizes, this may be a good workaround as well for you, Ashley, is be able to crop this directly in the system. All right, so you can go to 4:3 and crop the image as you need instead of a 16:9. Right, and you can easily move it around to figure out which is the best part of the image you want to grab. Right, so when you do this, and if we scroll down here, we'll hit save, right? And what happens is we're not cropping the original image. The original image is still there. We're just creating a new duplicate that's cropped. And you see the crop size is now this dimension versus this dimension, and it's a copy. So you don't destroy the original, which is a great extra feature, right? You're not having to go back and, oh, I messed it up, now I have to re-upload it and everything like that. No, it's creating that copy for you to use to be able to save and really crop the way you need it to. Again, you can also apply filters. These filters are pretty standard social media style filters, but there is more editing capabilities for images inside the layout builder once we get into that. So again, once you save here, it'll save another copy. So we're never destroying the original, right? It's always something that we can go back to and reference, and then easily you can just delete items here. All right, and I'll go ahead and delete this Korbyt URL as well, because it's not, or let me not delete it. I'll just move it to the training folder. So that way you'll have it in the training folder. You can go back and reference. So one more great thing about Korbyt, and I may have to log into another tenant to show you because I don't want to accept on your behalf, but we offer free stock photography directly through Korbyt in this Pixabay section. So let me go ahead and open up a new Korbyt tenant, one of our internal tenants, just to show you. Again, very similar. This is one of our internal tenants that we use here at RMG to create signage, create demos, things like that we show clients. But in the media library, again, Pixabay, when it pops up, you'll have an end user license agreement, very much like Korbyt. It'll just give you some terms and conditions about how to use Pixabay. All right, but it's very simple. You just search for an image. And now I can go and select any of these images or load more images and find something that I like. And then I'll just save this. And now we'll have, in the root folder, we'll have that image that we just pulled in. And again, as you can see, our internal tenant has 160 pages of content. So it's something that you'll want to control by setting up a good folder structure. As you can see, it grows pretty large pretty quickly. But yeah, easy way to get free content through Korbyt directly. It's again stock free. You can use it on screen. You can create content with it very easily. So that is the media library. And again, you can set up your card view or your file view, right? It gives you a little bit more of a visual, or again, your more detailed view here. So that just about covers the media library and how to upload content. Any questions on getting content into the actual media library for use?
I don't think so.
Awesome. So while we're here, again, let's continue on. The tag manager. This is a very helpful tool. Again, to search for by tag, we can go look at training. Oh, there's our two images that we tagged with training, right? We can look at, there's no layouts, but there is an image, right? So we can also search for other, right? We can look for office safety, right? Oh, there's an office safety one, right? And it happens to be a layout, right? We can easily change the tags and add tags here to each piece of content. We can replace tags. So if I were to go back and wanted to change my training tag, right, I could go training and I could add it to certain content. I could clear it from all the content, or I could replace training with and I can replace it. And now you'll see we have no training in here as listed, right? But if I were to search for nothing, right? And you actually have to replace it on the actual section. Sorry for the confusion on that, but if it was in the images, we'd have to select the images, right? So again, just to show you the process, now we're searching for training and nothing comes up. But if we search for training 02, now our images come up, right? So again, if I wanted to change these back, I would select my images here, go back and replace training 02. With training. And you see they disappeared. Our training 02 tag disappeared. Now we have just the training and we can go back. So again, easy to mass replace, mass change, kind of manage your tagging structure. It is good to think in terms, start thinking in terms of what specific tag can I give this? Again, your folder structure is pretty set up in a way that you can easily come back and determine tags, right? If you want the content for CGEE, then it's all tag CGGE, Same thing with these, right? Or RUC, all the content would be tagged RUC, right? So it's a great, easy way to sort through your content, look through your content, replace those tags again. And when we get into playlists and bringing in content directly, that's how we'll do it with tagging or referencing a folder. So we'll either reference the tag like training, or we'll reference a folder where the content is located. The courier is something that can be set up. It is based on these 4 online courier systems or file share systems, so Google Drive, OneDrive, Dropbox, or Box. And basically what it does is it'll set up similar to how you may have had it on your ES system, where it's a network share folder that you drag folder content to, and it shows up on screen. What this does is it links to that particular OneDrive or Box and brings in all the content from there into a media library folder. And again, you're just dragging and dropping to OneDrive instead of your actual media library. So this helps to keep people outside of Korbyt and give them the ability to get content in. For the most part, the people that you're going to be tasked with creating content will be in the system. So this is kind of a workaround for larger enterprises that don't want to have thousands of employees inside of Korbyt messing around with it. They'll just give them access to a OneDrive folder and they can drop their content in that. But again, you can set up tags for the particular folder, right, to bring in. You can include all the subfolders within that folder. And you can check it, and basically it checks for new content every 30 minutes and will update the media library folder that it's linked to. From there, we can either link to it via the tagging or the folder to display on screen. So any questions on the overall media section of Korbyt, how we get content in? Really, the best way to do it is what you're currently employing, right? Everybody's in the system and able to access the media library. That's the fastest way. It's the most direct. The courier you see, it takes 30 minutes, right? So if you add something, it'll be 30 minutes before you get that content to screen, right? Whereas the media library will push it a lot quicker since you're adding it directly to Korbyt, right?
There's nothing that we have that's duplicating like the categories and channels?
Yes. Yes, and that's in the signage section.
Okay.
Yeah, so in here, what we have, so that's the media library in pretty much a nutshell, or not so much of a nutshell, but it's really your main repository for all your content, where you can get new content and, affect what tags are on that content, things like that. So really just strictly focus on content that's added to the system. Now, how do we get that to screen? Well, there's a few different ways. We can, it's all in the signage section here. The main way to do that is with a playlist. The way we set it up is usually a playlist that references folders or tagging. So there's three types of playlists in Korbyt, and these replace channels and categories, right? This is where you would be able to group specific pieces of content in a certain playlist and schedule it somewhere. It can either be scheduled to a layout or to a screen. These can be referenced in the layout themselves, or they can be, again, just pushing content directly to screen. So what we would do is, for playlists, you can add a regular playlist, right? And I'll show you the 3 types of playlists that we have. The first 2 are created in that button right there that I just pressed, the add playlist button. We'll name this one static, and we'll just say all right, and I'll just give it a tag. And you can give it multiple tags if you want. Again, this helps refine certain things. So there could be multiple things named training, but only certain things are named training and static, right? So that's a key differentiator, right? You can have multiple tags and sort content that way. You can set default animations between your pieces of content here. So if you want it to fade in, fade out, you know, crossfade. Crossfade is usually the most, but there's several in here you can do, and no animation, random, bounce in. Again, lots of different types of transitions between the different pieces of content that we schedule. This override to play full video is nice because if you schedule a content piece that has video in it, you want it to play that full video. Interrupt play means exactly what that says. Once this playlist is scheduled somewhere, it'll interrupt what's going to currently display and display this first, right? You can set your default durations for each piece of content here. So we'll bring it down to 10. And you can change if you want it to display in order or random. And you can also set the number of items per loop, right? Do we want it to display all of them? Do we want to display 3 of them, 2 of them, 1 of them, whatever? All right. So again, very similar to the channels or the categories, excuse me, in ES, where you can set, I want it to play 3, then pick up the next time, 3, etc. So we'll save here, and this will create our playlist, and it brings up the playlist editor. Again, you have the same playlist options we just set up here on the top right. You can manage triggers. These are based usually on subscriptions, data subscriptions, and you can select, or you can, these are also based on player information. So you can set up your player with all this information and show the content based on that. All right, so if we wanted to say that this player is, department is 1, right? So if we look at our player, there's a field on our player that has department. If we say that, if we add the field department, you know, the value of department 1, we can tell the trigger, the content to show or hide based on that player information. You can continue to add multiples of these if you need to. Again, this helps set up content, one big playlist. You can set up multiple departments and have it key off the actual player, say, oh, this is the department or this is the location that this content should play. So that's your triggers. We'll go ahead and remove those right now for right now. The save playlist, exactly what it does. It saves the playlist ready for use. And exit does what it exactly as it says, exit. You can, again, this is called a static playlist, right? For a reason, because we can add content. Now down here, this pulls up our content adder. We can add images, videos, layouts, and you'll see that the static tab is highlighted. All right, this is how we create our static playlist. We go in, we can go in and schedule a layout if we want. Add selection, and you'll see it pops up, and that'll play for 10 seconds. All right. We can change individual transitions here. So say we have them set to vault to crossfade, all of them, right? If we continue to add more pieces of content, let's go back and add our 2 Getty images, right? So now, as you can see, we can change our individual in between each one, right? And you just hit the check mark to make that change stick. All right. So now we have this is a playlist. Again, it's going to play 10 seconds here, 10 seconds here, 10 seconds here, then repeat. All right, so 3 items running a total of 30 seconds. That pulls up your summary, that pulls up your edit. You can always collapse this. And again, just to get more space in. But to add a player to this playlist, to add this content, right, to make it display on screen, we'd simply, all your players will be listed here in this section, right? And you would just add your players. or it would be a player group, right? You could set up player groups of multiple players to drag and drop. So again, for your overarching content, you'd set up probably one player and schedule it to all the layouts or players, right? For that content. So that way, so that takes away the group having to add it individually and schedule and save every group having to do it. You can do it once and have it pushed to all the different endpoints and locations. So that's assigning a player there. You're also able to add schedules here. As you see, the default is daily all day, but we can refine this even more. We can say we don't want always, we want a date range from today until the end of the week, right? So we'll save that. The first time you do this, it'll knock off the daily all, and then it'll make you double check that that's exactly what you want to do. You want to change it from daily to this certain date range. So we'll proceed. And now you'll see it change from daily down here to now our starting and end date. We can edit this easily by the pencil or delete that setting again very easily through that menu. All right. So the date range is there. We can get even more advanced if we want. We can go back to maybe you want it Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from a specific time. Right? Maybe that's morning content, right? We can even come in here and do 8 a.m., right? So maybe that's content that's supposed to display in the morning only on Wednesday, Monday, and Friday, right? So let's save, and now you see it updates again here. But you can also add multiple schedules to a playlist, right? So you can come in here and now I just want this, in addition to Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I want to do Tuesday and Thursday. Maybe it becomes afternoon content, right? Let's do actually 2:59 p.m. So now we have our 2 times when this content will be ready to display wherever we scheduled it, right? Whether it's in a player or it's referenced in a layout, that's when this will be available to display and when it will show. And again, it'll play for 30 seconds at a time and reloop during this time period. Another great thing about Korbyt is most items are clickable. So we can click to there and it brings us right to the image. We can again change our tags real quickly if we need to. We can change the validity dates, etc. If it's a layout, it'll take you right to the layout builder. And you can go in and manipulate content as you need to. And we'll get into layout builder in just a minute. So static playlist, very easy to create, set up, add content manually by pressing the plus button, add your player, or if it's being referenced in a playlist on a layout, you won't need to add any player at all. But then you'll also need to make sure your scheduling is correct on how you want it to schedule. And simply save playlist, okay, and then we can exit. And now we should have our training static playlist. Again, in our list view here, we have all the options exposed. You can go back and edit it. You can download, export a playlist. So if you get a playlist set up exactly the way you want it, you can always export it and have it on archive in case you need to re-import it, in case it gets messed up, or you can always delete it and re-import and have the original playlist set up. You can preview your playlist here, and an export will just do just that. It exports it as a zip folder. And you'll just keep it as a zip folder, keep the same name. And once you need to bring it back in, you just hit import playlist. And you can choose your file here. You can even drag and drop from your download. And you can see it's uploading now. Take a few minutes to do so, but it'll bring it back up and it should be a duplicate playlist. You can also cancel from here if that's something you don't want to do. And see, it gave me a warning as well too, right? You'll always have to go in and delete it before re-adding it. You can delete it here again and then pull up your info about your setup here. Another good overall item is you can search by filter or filter by tag, right? So we did tagging on that one. We can look for training. And there's our, we could even look for static, right? And that would pull it up. So again, that filtering, that's available in, being able to sort by filter is available in most areas of Korbyt as well. So always double check if that's something you'd like to pursue, look at. You can filter by tags. You can, again, folder structure like any other section, but we off the big differentiator with Korbyt is we offer you the ability to set up your own folder structure for section, right? If most companies that have this type of software, you're locked into the folder structure they give you, or you can't create your own. So again, and they can be different between playlist and root, right? Playlist and media library, playlist and layouts. Anywhere there's a folder structure, it's independent of itself, right? So always be mindful. It does help to keep a good folder structure and naming convention and things of that nature. So we'll set up a folder structure in here. For our root folders, we can come back in and drag in our training to move to training. So again, we'll keep this training folder there for you so you can go back and always look at these, reverse engineer them, how we set them up possibly. So that's the static playlist. Again, the second type of playlist is a dynamic. And again, you can do, with this playlist, you can set up also multiple options, right? You can do part static, part dynamic, but really just showing you the two ways it can be set up here. So we'll say training, and we'll call this dynamic. All right, and we'll just leave some of the same filters, and we'll just do training and dynamic as our two tags, and save. And for here, right, it's the same exact playlist setup that we just went through, right? You'll still click the add content button, but remember I called out these two different sections here. So dynamic content is where you go in and begin to add your tags, your tagging. So now with training, we'll save the rule. And now this dynamic piece is pulling in all the content that's tagged training. And that could be layouts, that could be images, that could be videos. It's anything that can be scheduled in a playlist, right, is going to be pulled in dynamically to this tag. So that's where your tagging structure starts getting into more. You really want to set that up really well, right? Or very, so each department has its own unique tag. So that way you can easily say, okay, this is, just tag your content with this specific tag and it'll get displayed on screen.
So Josh, this is Ashley. With the main feed currently, we have the channels and the categories. So you're saying that the tagging is a way that we can replicate what we're used to doing that way?
Right. So what you're going to want to use is mainly the last playlist that we're going to set up, right? So this is the dynamic playlist. Mm-hmm. And I'll just save this as it is, right? And exit. And we'll go back to make sure the static one's not scheduled anywhere. I think we added the player to it. Make sure it's not. Oh, that's dynamic. Let's go back. Yeah, well, easily to remove a player, simply do it there, save your playlist. All right, so these are the two older style playlists that we have. The one that you'll want to use more is this clever playlist, and you saw where up here on the top where we right.
Mm-hmm.
And this pulls up a little bit different window. There's no preliminary setup window. All right, just goes directly into the playlist creator, and we'll give it a name. All right, and then you can add content here manually like we did, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you can also add to the rocket ship. Again, this is very much similar to dynamic, right? So we can set a folder or a tag. I can say folder is, or tag is training. And you can set up how this content actually displays, right? Do we want it to show? Yes, we want it to show, right? We want it to show that content, right? But we also, how long do we want each piece of content to show? Do we want 15 seconds? Do we want 10? Do we want it to show all the pieces of content, or do we want to show 3 pieces of content here, right? So these parameters down here determine that. Do we want it to crossfade between each piece of clever content? Now this is not for this, right? We've manually scheduled these. This is specifically for the clever content that we're pulling in, right? So maybe I want it to fade in, right? And we can even get more granular with that, right? We can say I want content type image, I want video, I want layout, right? Or I want all of them, right? If I want all of them, I'll just remove that. But if I want to choose, I only want to show images from this that are training, and that's what I'm going to do, right? And you can even add more parameters as well. You can change by order, right? Do I want it recent to oldest, oldest to recent, A to Z, Z to A? I can change the age. I want the range. I want it only to play the newer stuff, right? Anything that's aged a day, right, will play. As opposed to something that's 10 days, right? So it's looking for all content images that are, and it'll play 3 apiece every time this, and so we add this, right? Now we see our clever content piece here. Right, so you can get really granular with, again, mimicking what the channels and categories do by saying either I want it to reference a tag or reference a folder, but I can set up how that content shows in these options down here. So just to show you, clever folder, you can select any folder, and we'll just leave that as it is. And now it's referencing all, it's going to play all the content in that folder. So this is how we get into where you're dragging content to a folder and it's appearing on screen. This is how this is done.
Okay, so I think most of our licensees, and they may expand as with these new options in Korbyt, but it's usually we've just had, I guess it's similar to a static playlist. Maybe you can help explain. Basically it was just importing graphics, putting them into a message, and scheduling them in a playlist. What type of playlist would you recommend that most people stick with, the static or dynamic or clever, or am I understanding put all that together into one layout? Or
so
I'm
the
trying to piece this all together. I'm trying to get the big picture.
Sure, yeah. So the playlist in ES, it was contained inside the actual container, wherever that was, whether it was the player, whether it was the layout, right?
Mhm.
That whole
Yeah.
section is that's the playlist. This has been removed to give you more functionality from the actual container. So it's a separate entity, right?
Mhm.
So again, I'd recommend sticking with the Clever because it gives you a lot more flexibility. You can add content manually, right? Through your videos, layouts, whatever it is, right? Or
Okay.
you can again use that rocket ship content, Clever content, to reference a folder, right? And you can choose a bunch of different options. Even more so, if you click on content, you can choose when it shows up based on time, date, etc., data subscription, even what kind of player, right? So you can again begin to say, I want if you label all your players departments correctly, you could have content for department and it plays just based on that player. So in order to get right now, this playlist just exists as a playlist, right? If we're to preview this, oh, and I didn't save it. So very important to save, but if we're to preview any playlist, you'll see that it comes through with the content that's supposed to be assigned, right? If the content is not, right? And it just plays the content, right? This can be, again, we can make it full screen, or we can preview it at different sizes, right? Just to see what it looks like. So this is just a playlist, right? Again, you'll see that the content is scaling to fit inside the box. All right. To get that to display on screen, let me create another quick Clever playlist, right? So I have one piece of that, and then Clever content, we'll do our tag is training. And we'll add, and we'll say playlist. So they all do the same thing, right? They all display content. Just Clever content gives you, the Clever playlist gives you a lot more flexibility. If we go back to the playlist and preview this one, it'll come in with that content that's, again, it may be expired. That's why it's not showing up, but then the tag content should show up. And it may take a little while for the system to catch up. I know we've had certain network issues on our end, but it will show up. And again, I recommend using these because you can go in and, again, once you get it to a layout, you can reference any playlist inside of a layout, which is what we've done to create your content, right? So your main layouts, if we look at them, they have what's called a playlist element, and it's referencing a playlist. So that's how you get that content to show up inside of a layout, right? And you control how that content displays inside of here. Or actually, you control it inside your playlist, right? Determine how you want it to display, and you just reference it in one of these playlist elements. And if we look here, it's just this element right there. So we can pull that in. And this will give you a list of playlists that you can reference and add. All right. You can, with this element, you can add multiple playlists as well. So again, this is where it comes into the point where you get one for that overarching full campus, right?
Yes.
And you'd add a playlist, set that up the way you want it. You'd come to your edit elements and add a playlist and look for that one that you've created, right? What's corporate content all, right? Or not corporate content, university content all, something like that. And you would add your selection, right? And so now we have 2 playlists playing. And again, it'll cycle through this one, then cycle through this one, depending how we set it up on the playlist.
Okay, that's helpful for anyone who wants to put the main campus feed on along with their feed to sort of run both of those. That's how we would just schedule 2 playlists this way to add like a main campus feed to your, maybe the library feed, I think is.
Yeah, you can add as many playlists as you want to this area as well too.
Okay.
And it's easy to go back and remove them as well, just by clicking the minus.
Okay. Well, that's a lot more straightforward.
So it's starting to, is it starting to come together a little bit better?
It's starting to. I'm still early on that road, but it's starting to come together.
Sure. Yeah, no, when I first started with Korbyt, you know, I've been here since before we had Korbyt. So when I first started with Korbyt, it was a little bit of a learning curve, but now I'm definitely on the Korbyt side of our software.
Can't imagine going back.
No, definitely not. It's so much easier, so much more user friendly. Again, as you see, we're kind of building directly on what it looks like. You can see a lot of it, and again, this is our layout builder. You can preview from here and see. Again, some of the content may not show up because this preview is not mimicking what's on a final player. This is just a preview to check your build, right? I'm building everything. Everything's lining up the way I want it to. Okay, great. Some of the items will not show up here, but there's also separate previews as well. So if we go back to Korbyt, right? If we go back to the layout builder, right? Our main Korbyt, this is, again, that was our playlist area that we were at, right? We clicked on in the click on one of the items in there, it went directly to the layout builder. That's accessed through here, layouts. And again, same folder structure, same kind of button structure on top, right? And you have your folder structure. And here's where your main layouts are, right? This is where we've set up all the layouts that you'll be needing. Again, you won't necessarily need a separate layout for CSAT or Martin, just depending on how you set it up on the back end, right? You could use one layout and a bunch of playlists and just use triggers and things like that to display the content correctly.
So yeah, because I guess that's what we're used to doing, is how we had to do it in Simon. But is there, if we did just use one, like a main campus layout and an RUC layout, is there any, I don't know how to put it, other people getting anybody else's stuff, I guess is the way to put it, you know what I mean?
No. So if it's set up correctly, no, you won't see any cross pollination of content, right? Mm-hmm. And that's done usually using the player metadata, right? So if I go back to the playlist, and I'm going to open up another link here, and go back to the clever playlist or even the dynamic one, right? We can look in here on our triggers, and that's how you access that, right? The same trigger that we set up. You can set it up for static content as well. It's just not as advanced. But you go in here.
Oh, hello. Can I ask a question real quick? I'm sorry. It's Norma.
Sure.
Will the playlist we had be set up for us so we're ready to go? Or is it something we have to set up?
So it's something that we're working on with Ashley. That'll probably be done during, as Roosevelt and Ashley work together to determine how they want this final to work, right?
Yeah.
So once that's done, more than likely it will be set up for you and you won't have to do any of this, but it's good to know how it works, just so that way you can go back and in case anything happens, you can reverse engineer it. You can see what it looks like. Again, this is mainly a main overview of Korbyt and how it all works together. For the most part, you'll just be dragging and dropping content to a folder or publishing it that's tagged, depending on how that process is that Roosevelt and Ashley determined. Then that.
I'm sorry, I'm still not quite clear on how you decide if a playlist is going to be static, dynamic, or clever. Like what would help you make that determination?
So I would always go with clever because that's the latest one and it's going to give you the most functionality. The static and dynamic are there, just they're the older versions of the playlist. They're perfectly fine. They work just, you can do most of the functionality that you clam with a clever, but the clever playlist combines it all into one pretty much. All right, so you can do static content here. Right, I can add more content with the static. I can add more content with the rocket ship. And again, give you a lot more flexibility on how you choose to display either those clever content pieces, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or the actual static content. So in here, right, while we're here, I can determine based on this tab metadata right here is linking to a play is looking at the player information. And if I look at the player tab, right, there are about 30 pieces of information we can add to a player for it to look at and determine where content gets displayed. Right, so we can give it a division, we can give it a department, we can fill out all this information, right, and then key off of it in here to say I only want this content, right, this training content to display if my department is department 1. Right? So we'd save that, we'd add here we go. All right, we can remove this one because this is our new piece. All right, if we edit in there, we see it has department 1, right? So what we would do on the player is look at department, right? That's make sure that's our tag. Department is department 1. You go back and tag that with department 1. All right, and you'd save your player. So now, when this content comes around, wherever it's scheduled, whether it's in a layout, whether it's on the player itself, whatever, wherever it's at, it's going to automatically look to the player and make sure that, oh, this is department 1. Okay, I can play this content. All right, so you could set up one playlist, right? And so you'd add additional content, right? We can do training, or we can do department 2, right? Just to make it easy. Tag is training again. And then we click our content button. Make sure our metadata field is department. Is department. All right. So we'd add that. So now this content's only going to show up on department 2, right? It could be different content, right? But in this playlist, when this plays on screen, a player that has department 1 is going to see this. A player that has department 2 is going to see this. They're not going to see, department 2 will never see this one. Department 1 will never see this one.
So if we just go by the folder structure of what we were calling like each college or department would just have their own name, and you just make sure that your layout only has the playlist of your area's name, like University Relations or the library or Chubbs or whatever.
this could be, so let's look at it in terms of this, right? This could be the RUC playlist, right?
Right.
And so if we go back to our media library, right, we go to RUC, and whatever folders are in RUC, right, we can set up content based on that. We can say this is the content, right? And we can also say that, okay, or maybe RUC is not a good example because there's not a lot of folders, but let's see here. Let's just go by this, right? The main folder structure here is right. So in our this little thing in our playlist, right? This is change this back to right. And our folder structure we have right CGGG, right? So we'd set up a piece of content, whether it's static or dynamic, right? We can do soapbox, we can do by folder, right? And go to CGGG, and right. Then we can choose again whatever you choose to be your piece of data, right? You can continue to add multiple, definitions, multiple defining factors, etc. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's our CGGE content. Then we'd add another folder, right? Is CHBS, right?
Yeah.
So we can go. And then our content, right? Now, if we wanted to display on the same screen, we'd mimic what we put in here. Or we change the department is right. So now, once we go to the department, once we look at the player, now this may or may not work depending on the distro equipment, right? Some players might be linked to certain areas, etc. But that's a way that it could be done, right? You set your player to, sorry, let me go back to the player. You simply determine what either location or metadata fields here you want to determine to give that player a unique location or a unique instance where we can key off of and filter it to say this is that department, this gets that content. And to give you a little bit more of a better idea of that, let me show you on one of our internal tenants. See if this works correctly. I have a similar setup on a playlist currently that I'm featuring that exact functionality on. So I'll go to this is that exact playlist setup, right? And we have tagging. These are our tags. If we look at the actual tags, those are the tags. And this one doesn't have a when clause, right? So this one will show up regardless. So again, this will be your main campus-wide educational piece. And then we have stuff like department local, right? If I go back to here, now I'm using that when clause to say, make sure this plays on players that have division as local. And again, if we look at that one, this one's division recognition, right? So if I go back to my player, we'll see that this content is all that's assigned, right? My location is, my division is local right now, right? So what I'm expecting to see on this screen is all corporate and all local content. So if I were to go back and preview this player, I'm gonna see all my corporate content come through and then all my local content. Again, this will cycle through all the content that's coming through. It may be in some form of editing, right? Just because, you know, some people have published, this is internal tenant where it's not finalized, none of the content really super finalized. But again, as you can see, we've created the layout to search and look for certain tags, bring it in based on their tagging, based on a folder structure, whatever it is. But it's only playing the content that we designate on the screen based on that division or the department or whatever metadata we reference.
Okay, so what if one area is managing, you know, managing their content with tagging, but we really are operating in silos with each of these feeds. So what if, you know, the main feed and the university relations feed started using the same tags? Is that going to bring their content over into each other's feeds?
I don't know if we lost Josh's audio,
Okay.
but
Oh,
in
sorry.
theory,
Yeah.
go ahead,
Sorry
Josh.
about that. Yeah. I was on mute for some reason. Yeah. You definitely want to make sure your tagging structure is set up beforehand, and it's kind of airtight. If somebody starts using the wrong tag, it will cross pollinate, right? So there, you know, that's something to, again, send out information on once you determine the best way that you want to move forward, right? On how it's done, and make sure that content, again, you'll have you'll be able to change tags using your tag manager. You'll be able to amend things quickly, but if it's entered in wrong the first time, it will go to screen and display on screen. You'll have to find it and change it.
Okay. We'll work that out.
Yeah. And then, so again, I can easily go in here to my player, right? So now I have local and corporate playing, right? Corporate has no win clause, but maybe I wanted to change the player and double check on this, what this tag is. This one is recognition, right? So if I go back to my player and edit my division to recognition, as soon as that player recognizes that, we can refresh our preview here. It's going to get rid of, it's still going to play the corporate content, but it's going to get rid of all that local content that we saw at the end of this and bring in new content that's tagged for local. Now, again, it's not new content, it's content that's been established and created, but the player, you know, again, it's looking for that different piece of content. So this is all the corporate news. And once it changes, it'll go to the recognition slides.
Okay.
And we'll just let this loop through just 1 second so you can see how the final end result is. So again, you can set up multiple pieces of clever content in one playlist, reference that playlist, and it doesn't matter if the playlist is scheduled directly to the player or if it's inside of a layout, it'll still reference the right content based on that tagging. I believe it's after this survey, we'll see the different content. Yep, there we go. There's our recognition content. And again, if I wanted to remove the corporate content from the player, All right, so it cycles through this and it'll go back to the corporate content and then play this one again and over and over and over again. If I wanted to cycle back to the corporate content, if I don't want it to remove it completely, I could simply go into here and add a when clause, right? Division, where is it at? Division is corporate. So now when I refresh this, I'm going to show you because it's going to loop through all these recognitions and it's going to go back into the corporate because I haven't refreshed the player yet. I haven't refreshed this preview. So it should go back to corporate content. Yep, there's our corporate content, right? Well, I just updated that. So let me refresh this, right? And this will start over from the beginning of the playlist. And you'll see that corporate content should be removed. Let's see, make sure that went through. Division is corporate. And it may take a few cycles for it to actually catch because it does have to take a check-in. And you can always force that here. And sometimes you may need to go clear your cache on your players as well because it does sometimes get hung. But it should, in theory, update to not show the corporate here in just a bit. Let me go to preview again. Make sure this saves. Oh yeah, save playlist. That's what it was. So always remember to save your work, folks. See, as soon as we hit save playlist, again, it refreshed to not show that corporate content. And again, I can easily change the player again if I go back, edit, change this back to something else. All right, and now if I refresh this, we're showing a completely different piece of content because it's based on those clever content pieces, right? So this one right here would be our news, right? And we see our players news. If we go here, social, right? So you can set this up. Again, if you have a when clause, it'll look at the player or whatever you set here, right? The time, the date, the description, the subscription, excuse me. You can set all those different parameters and it will look at that. If it doesn't have this, it will not, it'll play it regardless, right? So on the original, we didn't have any, if we look at this one, we didn't have anything, any when clause for corporate. And if I remove that, it'll play everywhere, right? If I add in, it'll look for what I specifically tell it to look for and play on that player. Does that make sense?
Starting to. I'm going
Yeah,
to play around with this a lot.
Yeah, we recommend that, again, after this training session, again, Roosevelt's recording it. He'll send it out to you. that you take the, a few days, get in the system, try to mess it up, try to break it, I mean, not, there's nothing so far
See there,
gone.
Joshua.
There's nothing so far gone that we can't fix, right? Usually. But at the same time, it'll help you form those questions to ask us next time we get to train on exactly how you set things up, right? Once you've gone through and sandboxed, you'll form better questions of how you want to use the system to ask us. Right now, it's kind of an overview, and you're looking at it, you're like, oh man, this is a lot. But really, once you get into it, it's not gonna, once Roosevelt and you set it up the way you prefer, with our guidance a little bit, then it'll become second nature and really easy to use because you'll have your particular setup. Right now, it's like as a designer, as a content designer, I usually ask clients for as many restrictions as they can give me. Tell me what I can't do, because that lets me know exactly what I can do. If you tell me, oh, just go ahead, I could come back with 20 different designs. There's so much possibilities, right?
Right.
Once you have those parameters and that box set around your solution, it becomes a lot simpler because you're designing for your exact implementation, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, with that said, I know we're coming up on. We've been talking for quite a long time, and actually we've coming up on the end of the session. I apologize for not stopping for a break or anything like that. But as of right now, we've kind of gone through most of the playlists, most of the content assignments and things like that in Korbyt. Really, what would be next on the list for our main other training would probably be more the admin tenant training setup. And then also to add content, right? You'd just be making sure that your users are accessing the folders, able to add their content that way. And we can definitely look into layout building on another session. But really, layout building is very simple. You just simply add a layout. You would choose your layout name, right? And I'll quickly create one that you can use to sandbox with. I always pick default because default it scales. It does not, if you use a fixed layout, there's several different types of layouts to choose from. There's some for video wall specific. There's some for fixed layouts. Fixed layouts will give you a dimension, right? And you could set your own custom dimension, which is nice, but it will not scale. So what happens is if you want to display this on a smaller screen, you're going to cut off the layout. The layout will cut off right here, whereas the default will scale to fit that, right? Go back to default. But as you can see, the different setups, video wall, again, setup, ready to use if you have a video wall setup. You can bring in external layouts from any HTML builder, right? And you can also export and import layouts. So you can, once you get a layout designed the way you want it, you can archive it and save it for future use or in case it gets messed up. But always choose default and the open canvas. These canvases down here, while it gives you a nice division, those are hard division lines that cannot be breached by different content pieces. So if you're scheduling an image here, you wouldn't be able to drag it across to this top part, right? So you can absolutely mimic all these divisions using all the elements in the page and just this default layout main.
Yeah, everybody's really going to be, there's a couple of people that are going to be using the RUC layout, but all that this group for the most part is going to be doing with our layout is just that one big box. That's really all they're going to be in charge of. So I don't know if it would be helpful in the training default if you just wanted to put in, those two layouts and they can sort of play around with exactly what we're going to use. I think that might be more helpful than just these generic things.
Sure. So they're already there, and we can easily
Right.
clone these. So we
Yeah.
can do a. And I'll even move them to a folder
Okay.
specifically for training, so they can mess with these.
Okay.
We'll do the CSAT and we'll do the ruck layout. And then we'll even create another folder off the root here for training.
Okay.
And then we'll go back to our main layouts and bring our training layouts over here. And then just to give you a quick overview of the layout builder, we'll go into the layout builder. Again, similar functionality you see here. Edit. And it'll bring up the layout builder. You have your toolbox, which is movable right now, and all your elements listed as an element layer. And it's simply just drag and drop to add a new element. And you can quickly add a YouTube, right? And say we go to let's see, I got a YouTube channel. Yep, so we can even just get one video, right? We can say, let's go to this video. Or one of these, right? We'll catch this link. In our layout builder, all the elements have the same gear wheel up on top to expose menus. These menus are the edit element affects what's inside the element. The properties affects the actual element frame. Security is where you can lock down using your user groups, right? So again, this is where you come back and say, I want to lock down all the other sections except for this, right? So in here, we'd say we want our security to be whoever the user groups are assigned to control this content, right? But again, we can go to our YouTube, right? We had our YouTube link. We'll simply paste. And now we have a YouTube video that'll play on a layout that we can resize. So you simply save element, you can remove here. And again, there's a ton of different elements here, right? You could easily add a QR code. And again, the same kind of property, the same kind of element, gearbox, edit element. If we were to go to Radford University online, right? We could just simply use the Radford EU. Oh, didn't mean to do that. Radford EU. And now this QR code, when scanned, will take you right to Radford EDU. All right, and you can change, again, the color. There's all these elements have different attributes that you can change on the content itself. And again, you can do it with actual, and I'll show you just a simple, what the properties does. I'm not gonna add an image to this, just show you what the properties menu does. All right, so the properties menu, again, you can set your height, your width. These can be actual percentages or pixels. You can do 1280 px, right? Oh, sorry. You have to do it in a specific way. px, right? And it'll give you as best as it can, right? Or you can do percentages, right? So again, right? But it also offers advanced functionality, so you can change the background color of the element itself, right, to any color. You can make it transparent. You can change the opacity of the entire element. Now this does this with the image as well. So if we're to add an image, right, let's go ahead and add an element, add an image, right, add. If we resize this, right, there's settings on this image to where it fills the entire box and cuts itself off. There are settings you can change here, right? So now we see the background show through. Auto will give you the exact size of the image. So this is a very large image, as you can tell. And manual, you can set it to 100%, 100%. This is that stretching that would fill the entire area, right? This is what that would do. But again, this cannot be accomplished using a playlist because the playlist does not function this way. And you wouldn't be able to cycle through content. It would just be one image. So, but to change the opacity, again, you can change the entire opacity of the element. There are some additional editing features in here as well, as far as the ability to set a frame, right, around the item. Some of them are classic, some of them are really 80s style and stuff like that, but you can get into adding frames around the content, or again, really easily removing them. You can, again, more filters. We can make it black and white. We can bring blurs in, invert the color. And you can add shadows and things of that nature, right? So we can add a shadow to this if we want to, and offset. And you can adjust that how you need, right? You can go. So again, lots of functionality with inside. And again, there's tons of elements to play around with. External URLs, RSS feed, YouTube. We do meeting displays. There's the playlist one that references all your playlists. Again, HTML container. You can do WebEx. We can even do Teams, Slack, things like that to incorporate those into the signage if you need to. So that is I know we're a minute over and I want to be respectful of everybody's time, but that is really, you know, in a nutshell, Korbyt. Of course, there's a lot more on the admin side, such as players and making sure they're up and running and how to admin those players and player groups and things of that nature. But really, the main bulk of your getting your content to screen is going to be done through these layouts, through playlists, and scheduling the players, making sure you got a good tagging structure, a good folder structure.
Okay, yeah, I think we're going to try and duplicate the folder structure as much as, I think we had a good one in Simon. So we're going to try and duplicate that as much as possible. But yeah, if you want, this is an opportunity to change something. If you didn't like, you know, what you had before, you can definitely, you know.
Yeah, it's very easy to go in there, and again, you can manipulate all kinds of different items. There's images, videos, sound, you know, we do offer extended map. We have a mapping system in Korbyt that you can do routing to. If we were to create a map for you guys, you could definitely go from one point to another and route your clients from this desk to the reception, the cafe, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. So there's lots of, Korbyt is a very powerful tool. You can incorporate data feeds. So eventually, should you need to incorporate meeting rooms for your admin offices and things like that, right? There's ways to get that meeting data brought into Korbyt and displayed on screen so they can see what times the meetings are, what meeting rooms are available, etc.
That isn't something they necessarily use. Yeah, there's definitely some. Oh, we can put Zoom meetings on digital signage. That sounds fun.
Yeah, again, you can.
I can't imagine how we do that. How we would want to utilize that. That's interesting that you can.
Well, it may be good if it's more like a address, right? Like maybe it's the CEO or the dean addressing the entire college, and you want that to display, right? He can set up a Zoom meeting. You put the Zoom meeting ID here, and get it going, and then it displays on all the screens, and he's addressing the campus for all those screens, right?
Okay.
Something like that. So all that flexibility is built into Korbyt, being able to, control where you're going to endpoint, and really a lot more automation features as well than what was in ES. So we really hope that, you'll really enjoy working with it. I certainly do. And I was a diehard ES person. I was when Korbyt first came out, I was like, yeah, but it'll be nice addition, but ES is our main thing. And really that has been far eclipsed. Korbyt is much more powerful, much more flexible, easy to scale. So we really hope that you enjoy working with it. And again, take this training session, review the video, kind of get what you can out of it. Again, you have these two items, these two layouts to mess around with, and I'll remove some of these elements that we added.
Okay.
Just so it's more true to the original. And again, to work with this, again, you would saves your progress. And you'll see right there, it tells you as a draft. Again, this means it's not going to be published anywhere. If it is somewhere, it's going to show the last version that was saved. It's not going to show this saved version that you've worked on, right? You're saving your progress. You're going to come back to it later. When you're ready to get it available for screen, right? It has to go to screen via a playlist, right? So this layout is ultimately scheduled in its own playlist to a screen, right? This publish makes that available on that playlist. So you can continue to edit as you publish, or you can publish and exit, right? And it just brings you back here. Again, you can preview your layout and see where it's at with the content and everything like that. And I'll go ahead and publish this one, so it's ready to go. Again, feel free to, on these training ones, it's carte blanche. You can come in here and clone one if you want, and recreate it, do whatever you need to, change it around. And then really we do, again, go to this training session, sandbox, access the how-to section on the help. It's the last tab at the bottom, or to close all these. So the how-to section gives you a great overview video-wise of playlists, of different content pieces, right? Different layouts, how to build using the layout editor builder, how couriers work, provisioning players, right? Again, just a good overview, quick videos. None of them are more than 5 minutes long. So you can kind of, at a quick glance, learn something quick about a particular section of Korbyt. Every one of you also has access to kbe.korbyt.com. It's an open web form website that you can access and ask questions. So layouts, right? It'll tell you, there'll be articles to read about what layouts do, what different types of layouts, how to create a new layout, exactly kind of what we've gone over. But it much more so, right? You can also access information on players, yeah, etc. And now, since y'all are all on Korbyt as well, you do have access to community. which again, just using your Korbyt login, your email and password that was for Korbyt. You log in, and this is a forum where other Korbyt users across all of our enterprises, across all our different customers get together, and they can ask questions, they can review, they can direct link to us, and then you can download even more free content from us. So all these are available to you right out of the system, able to access. So again, just do your best to access the system if you can, if you have time between now and the next training session, and we will look forward to getting you the rest of the training, the rest of Korbyt explained to you, and then get into layout building and stuff like that.
Okay, yeah, that's Thursday at 10:30. So
Sounds good. Yeah.
I think everybody should have the link, so we'll be in good shape.
Excellent.
All right. Well, thanks again, everybody, for your time. I'm gonna go ahead and end the session, and Ashley, I will follow up with the recording to you.
Okay. And I was going to ask about getting together. We talked earlier about getting CDPA configured. I was just wondering if we need to schedule something about that.
Yeah. Let's see. I probably will have some time maybe later this afternoon around maybe 3 o'clock.
That sounds great.
Okay.
All right. Well, we'll talk then.
Sounds great. All right.
Okay.
Talk to you soon.
Thanks.
Goodbye.
Thanks,
Bye, everybody.
everyone.